A good Erev Shabbos. Maybe because this week's Parsha starts with God's call to Avram to go unto yourself, as in, go become what you are destined to become. Abraham, our patriarch in general, and especially in this portion of Lech Lecha, offers us a lot of perspective about being human as a basis for being a Jew in the world. Rabbi Mordechai Yosef Leiner of Ishbitz is not one of the commentaries that our study group engaged with in the past few months, but he's become very popular in recent years with many Torah study groups. He's known as something of an antinomian rabbi, which of course piques the curiosity of many, and his commentary called Mei HaShiloach, the Waters of Shiloach, has become a bestseller. A summary of those commentaries was just published and gives us some fascinating insight into some of Avraham, soon to be Avraham's example. If a challenge of the Jewish people in our times is material well-being and self-governance, we should certainly not think that it was always this way. For our grandparents and many generations before them, living under foreign rule was a given, as was a state of material want that would probably shock us. They were very poor on the whole. The Ishbitzer writes in Mei Shiloach that when Avram built an altar in our parsha and called in the name of God at the beginning of our portion, Vayiven Sham Mizbeach L'Hashem Vayikra B'Shem Hashem, Avram was praying for some solace and even equanimity in the face of poverty. Rabbi Leiner reads the command of Lech Lecha, go for yourself or go become yourself, the first of 10 tests which Avram experienced over these few parshas that we're reading. This was the test of poverty. In this way, it was a direction to abandon his established home life and assume a life of minimal material comfort. The assumption here, writes the Ishbitzer, is that a necessary basis on which to build a firm and meaningful relationship with God is to rid oneself, shed the grievances or complaints against God in particular. Being angry or resentful just does not go together with true service or effective leadership. Inability to endure poverty with equanimity will get in the way of this relationship. The Gemara in Eruvin says that there are 3 things that cause a person to lose his bearings, to run off track: idolatry, an evil spirit, and the burdens of excessive, oppressive poverty. In response to this challenge, Avram built an altar and asked God to be spared these burdens. What might those burdens be? And what was the Gemara trying to convey? Rabbi Leiner's insight is that the burden is someone who is dissatisfied with his lot. It's not the lot itself, not the amount of money or the fortune, it's the satisfaction. Remember Pirkei Avos from this summer? Ezehu Ashir Hasameach Bechelko. The wealthy person is one who is happy, satisfied with what they have. Imagine someone with billions of dollars who's still not rich because they're not content. Maybe they're bitter, resentful, or they think they should be treated better. They're not much fun to be around. By contrast, you could have a person with very little, and they might be wealthy in the sense that they are satisfied and free of gripes, complaints, or resentments. Avram was davening for that inner strength to find satisfaction in whatever he had at any point in his life. That working definition of the minutiae of poverty, explains Rabbi Yitzchak Dov Schwartz, who compiled these teachings of the Ishbitzer, doesn't fit perfectly with a person who pursues a life of luxury and comfort. Even when that person has no complaints per se, they still don't attain inner peace until their desires are satisfied. Avram's prayers were answered in this respect because he was content, even with austerity. That took a lot of inner work to get to that state of contentment. He seems to have successfully passed this first trial, both traveling light and being satisfied. And then what happens? He's presented with the opposite situation. He gains materially in cattle and silver and gold. The market goes up, and the newfound wealth threatens to weigh him down. He's anxious about this. The Torah describes his burden as very heavy, kaved me'od. Now Avram davened to be saved from the excess of possessions, where he previously asked to be saved from the poverty of dissatisfaction with little. Just to contrast, his cousin Lot had a great deal of material possessions. It didn't weigh him down. Like probably most people, Lot rested comfortably and walked with confidence, having a tidy sum in his portfolio. Later on in the story, that Lot came to encounter the challenges of material well-being. We'll see him again when he moves to Sodom. At this point, God enlightened Avram as to how to handle material success. God promised him expansive space over which to spread his riches and transform kaved, heavy, into kavod, into honor. God promises the land to him, saying, "Lift up your eyes now and look forward. Look out from the place where you are. Look northward and southward and eastward and westward. Safona v'negba v'kedma v'yama. Kum v'hitalech ba'aretz. Arise and walk across the land, through the length and the breadth of it, because, says God, I will give it to you." So Avram learned always to travel light. At a certain point, he was impoverished materially, but learned to adapt to it with acceptance. And at the other end of the spectrum, when he came into possession of great flocks and herds, and tents and gold and silver, even then he did not feel burdened, but rather he used all this to strengthen and deepen his connection to God. Not to spoil the story for you, but Avram is eventually going to come to be called Avraham, which means the father of many nations. He's going to become a leader and a role model, an inspiration to those whom he leads. He needs to have his priorities straight, and he needs to have proven himself in different sets of circumstances. He has the priority straight of the notion of service. He belongs to God, and God is there for him. It's a real relationship. As long as the relationship, any relationship, is self-centered. What have I received? What honor and privilege will I get? How much do others respect and honor me? A person will never be satisfied. In fact, the more honor they receive, it's likely they'll just crave that much more. In stark contrast is the notion of a serving leader. The leader exists not to take, but to give. This is true in a one-to-one relationship between two people, just as much as in a public leader like Avraham, or later Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. They extinguish their ego and they become channels for the good and the true and the holy. As in a relationship between two people or two entities, if the guiding question is, what can I give? How much can I give? There's an unlimited degree of satisfaction to be found because there's always something more to do, always more to give, more of oneself to share. This is the kind of role model of leadership that we need and helps us become who we're destined to become. Maybe, just maybe, because God has blessed us at every stage of our history with Jewish leaders in this model, we've been able to withstand the burdensome challenges of poverty, as in the European world that many of our ancestors left just a few generations ago, and similarly with selfless leaders who put the needs of the people first and foremost and bringing us closer to God, using our material well-being as a channel for that relationship and not an impediment. We've been able to thrive and withstand the challenges of wealth and success of recent times. This only recently ended great golden age of North American Judaism. In a perspective that stretches back to Moses and his encouraging us to use our wealth to build a Mishkan, a portable temple in the desert, up to King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, who built the temple in Jerusalem, to our age in which shuls and yeshivas and Torah institutions have flourished, it's all rooted in the model of Avram, who's soon to become Avraham. The key to this, or at least one key to this, is found in the fourth aliyah of Lech Lecha, Vayiten lo maaser mikol. Avram gave a tithe from everything. Giving a tithe from our net gains shows that we acknowledge that everything comes our way from God ultimately. Sometimes we work hard and we're rewarded for our effort. Sometimes we work hard and there isn't, or there's less of a dollar compensation attached than we might have hoped. Other times fortune may come our way not apparently directly as a result of our efforts. We might do a calculus in our head of what we earned by our own labor and what was a gift, but really it all comes from the same source. When we give maaser, a tithe, out of whatever comes our way, it shows that we understand that it's all from above. And God promises to pay us back many times over for our tithing. Avram was an example in our parsha of how God keeps close with those who follow in God's ways. So as we move forward with the stories of Genesis, of the book of Bereshit, Chumash Bereshit, in the beginning, we learn about ourselves. We learn to ask good questions about what kind of people we are, what kind of people we want to be, and what kind of a name and reputation will remain after we're finished our time here. Many different challenges will come our way, and if we welcome them as opportunities for growth and change and development, we wind up much wiser and wealthier than we would have been if we'd complained and groused at every step of the way. It's the mark of a mature person, a student and descendant of Avram, who soon will become Avraham Avinu, Abraham our father, not to play the victim card, but rather to accept everything that comes our way and turn it into something good, and let it turn us into better people. Shabbat Shalom, a good Shabbos.